It's nice.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, yeah, some people are still joining.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we're good to go right now. So hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Indelible Evenings. And I want to thank you all for being here tonight or this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are around the world. This will be our third Indelible Evening session for this semester. And the series, as some of you may already know, will be presented by editorial members of Indelible, which is AUD's literary and arts journal. So today the hosts will be Professor Annamaria Lambri. Annamaria, could you?
Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
Who is Professor of Interior Design at AUD's School of Arts, Architecture and Design. And myself, Dr. Roula-Maria Dib, Professor of English from the School of Arts and Sciences, English Department. So we are very excited to be hosting special guests, as usual. And tonight we have three very special guests from different parts of the world, from Italy and from France, to, again, once more, marry the ideas of words and the more concretized form of design. So we have designers, art historians, and a sculptor with us today. Before we start, though, before we fully introduce our esteemed guests, I just want to go over a few things, just a little bit of housekeeping. Firstly, I want to ask everybody to keep their microphones muted during the talk in order to avoid any unnecessary background noise. Also, please do have questions and save those questions until after the talk. Make sure to place the questions in the chat box, and we hope to be addressing all of them. And of course, you will be invited to use the microphone if you would like then during the Q&A session. So, of course, feel free to use the reaction button. So if you want to clap, give a thumbs up or a heart or a laugh or any other emoji that you would like, please feel free to do so. And now I am going to give the floor to our arts editor, Annamaria.
Yes, thank you. So it's my pleasure to see so many. Thank you for being with us. I would like to introduce, and it's my pleasure to introduce our guest, international guest. We have Dolly Daou. Dr. Dolly Daou is an international leadership experience, pluridisciplinary design pedagogy, research, and higher education quality assurance. Dolly does so much, and so currently she's the director of Food Design Lab à l'École de Design in Nantes, Atlantique, in France. She's the founder and chair of the new ETS working group, Cumulus Association. She's also Congress Ambassador for Dubai Tourism and community manager at the European Innovation Council. She also writes books, research. She's a polyadric actor. So, welcome, Dolly.
Thank you, Annamaria. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And then we have Antonio Signorini from Pisa in Italy.
Yes, hi.
Antonio is a well-known contemporary artist, and his work includes sculpture, painting, monumental art. He studied in Italy, Florence, in Milan, then he moved to London. He has this international experience in the Middle East and Dubai in particular. He has a specific own technique to work with the bronze and other materials, and he will explain us better. And we remember the warriors sculpture as one of the iconic pieces that we know. And then obviously he will explain us better. So welcome, Antonio.
Hello, hi. Hi, everyone.
It's welcome back, Antonio. Antonio was with us last year, also in October during AUD's Tolerance Forum. And
Yeah.
it was Antonio, Annamaria and I together in the same panel.
Yes,
So it's
yes.
good to see you again, Antonio.
Very nice to see you too.
And I guess you are in a warehouse, in a production.
I'm actually, yes, I'm at the foundry at the moment, which I'm working on new pieces. If you want, I can show you around. It's a very interesting, let me see if I'm able to turn the camera. So that's where we work at the moment. So there is few things happening. Those are all the work we are trying to do. As some people here working on walks, and me working on a small piece over here. So this is a small dino-ish where I'm working on at the moment. It's all in wax.
Wow.
And that's where we go. So Florence, yes.
In Florence.
Florence, yes.
Well, and our beautiful Paola Visconti. Paola is, hello. She studied ancient history, history of art, and anthropology. She specialized in prehistoric civilization, traditional cultures, and historical art. And she is also the artistic director of 71 Structural Art. Hi, Paola. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you to both. Yeah, thank you, Roula. It's very, very nice to be here with you today. Thank you for creating all of this. Thank you.
So, as the title, Words, Images, we want to discuss today with this fantastic guest of how words inspire design, image, sculpture, art in general, and other ideas. And to do that, we would like to start with Paola, talking about the period when words were not written, but maybe just transferred through images in history.
So this is very interesting because, you know, a lot of the images we are using for arts are coming from the prehistoric time. And it's very interesting to see how before, you know, at the same time when humans start having the necessity of expressing themselves, their feelings, they feel also the need to express themselves through art and through paintings. I was one of the lucky person that had the chance to see some prehistoric caves that now are closed, and you feel, you know, what is the way they're using these images is not only to tell a story but also to transfer emotions. So the words and the images together, for me, I am more related to the words than to the images because my focus is in history, in literature. I'm writing as well. I'm a writer. I'm just going to publish a short story, you know, in a few days. But for me, the connection between words and images is so strong that we can start really from our prehistoric time till now to see this necessity of man of expressing in different ways. But the first one was through images because there was the necessity to leave something and to tell stories. After that, we have a lot of example of how it was like the way of creating a process that was forever, and then the few different kind of writing start to appear. And you know, this is very interesting to see that men all around the world in different times, but they had the necessity to create words that have the possibility to be written in the future. So they start writing and they created independently, this is very interesting, in Mesopotamia, in China, in South America, this way of writing. Before was like a writing like the Egyptian. Sometimes they have these symbols that was images at the same time. But then this became a necessity to transfer not only the information, because writing and words started for information. first of all, to transfer information and knowledge, but also to transfer emotion. This is the part I like mostly. That is the way man needs, and this is why images and art and the artistic part of the words and the images are combined together. And I was talking the other day with Annamaria about these things, and we were thinking how different can be the perception, also not only related to the images, but we can perceive the writing, the words and the images completely in a different way, only because of our experience, of our background, of our history. So it's nice to have this worldwide language that is at the same time filtered by our own experience, and it makes the life richer, you know, in a way, and the possibility to transfer to each other more information, more different way of seeing life. This is you know, I don't want to talk too much, but this is a little bit what is my my idea to bring and to create the connection between images and words through writing. Writing is creating images through words. This is when you read, you imagine, and you have images that comes from your imagination that is completely personal and not possible to share, you know, but it's good to share this through this conversation, for example.
And you just said about emotions that are linked also to art, to expression of this emotion through a different way, like art, like we saw right now some film done by Antonio. Antonio, what do you think about emotions and art? But you are in mute, Antonio.
Sorry. Yeah. And yes, I actually was listening very carefully because to me, art is an emotion in every meaning. Is an emotion for who's doing it, who's trying to do it. It's also a language. I think we spoke about that, the necessity of transforming emotion into abstract, to have something in writing. And I think at the very beginning, related to what Paola, she was saying, I strongly believe that the ancient humans, they were trying to say something through by using images, right? I'm speaking about especially about the rock art, where those humans, they were trying to figurate their own, you know, probably their daily life and also their fears or their hopes. And I still pretty much thinking that what we are doing nowadays is still in a kind of translation of emotion, and that's, I'm speaking mostly for my experience. Of course, I'm trying to. Sometimes you're working on some pieces, then you don't really understand what you are doing, and then maybe you have time to read. That's what I'm trying to say, is to read the art. You know, to read the art. And it's completely free for each of us. It's completely in a freedom of expression and of imagination. So the art is an emotion. Annamaria is definitely an emotion. So, and each of us have part of it. You know, who's doing it, who's watching it. The spectators is actually the actors of the artistic process. You know, there is not a big division from my point of view between artist and spectators or audience, because we're all part of the same process, you know, with the differentiation. So there is someone have an expression in the very beginning to do something, and someone else have the expression to translate something. Then even the artist at the very beginning, when he maybe didn't notice that characteristic, you know, and so that's why we can spend hours and years probably in front of some art piece and always find something new, you know, something. Then I strongly believe then also the artist, when he did it, he didn't notice, he didn't mean it, and then it's happened to someone give something to that artworks.
So, for example, for you, how is the process, inspirational process for an artwork? You get inspired more from words, or you get inspired by emotion, or together?
Yeah, you see, Anna, I believe that the words are emotions. And so the beginning is pretty much in this meaning, is also an emotion, of course. But for me, I'm an tridimensional artist. So I have the luck actually to work with plastic materials, the clay or other materials, even the marble. When you sculpt in a marble, you have a primitive idea of what to do, which it could become from exactly as you said, from an emotion, from a theme. For example, nowadays myself, I'm so interested about the freedom that we are missing during this period of time worldwide, with all these restrictions. So I find myself a lot into the child's imagination. So I'm trying to go back in this kind of stage of our life when everything is possible, where donkeys and objects are flying or everything it could be touched by magic and change in something else. And then when then I'm starting to work on, I noticed then something else coming out, and that's I'm the first one to be very surprised. Then you may start to bring simple example, doing an apple, and then luckily, literally you see then what you are modeling or sculpting, it looks more like in a planet than an apple, so. And that's something that is uncontrolled. And as I suppose the emotion are really not controllable. The emotion are free, and they're coming from this substrate of experience that we have in life. Then then sometimes they're coming out very strongly without us be able to control them. And that's, I think, art. And it's pretty much similar, I'm sure even in painters, they can have the same experience, starting to paint in something, and then during the process, something else is coming out and it is uncontrollable. So that's what I find absolutely amused. I'm amused about it because it's beautiful, it's free.
So if you want to go back to what Paola said about emotions and about how the concretization of imagination preceded words, do you think this is due to the fact that our emotional experience, or let's say the fundamental layer of human experience, is actually emotions? So we learn about the world through what we feel. For example, an infant learns about pleasure, about pain, what they like, what they don't like. They cry, they're content. So our earliest forms of experience in the world could also be the same root for our symbolic thinking. So is that also where symbols, where images come from? Because Paola also says that, to imagination, something like imagination, so the image precedes because of imagination. So there are images in our head. And is that why there's, emotions are so important, because they are the root of all that experience?
I deeply believe it. Then we are emotion and nothing more than emotion. I mean, I think life is not real in the meaning of there is nothing that is realistic. Everything has a story. Everything it needs an emotion to become something else, more or less important to you. And each of us, we have this individual process of images. So an image to you, where are you from actually? Where is your origin?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Lebanese.
Lebanese. So beautiful. I love your country. For example, for a Lebanese child, as an image of a tree have a completely different meaning than a children from Africa or from Netherlands or from Denmark. And everything becomes something different. It could be, for example, speaking about Beirut, there are those cedars beautiful citrus tree just right close to the port, I think, to the side, and they put lights on it. Every time I'm there, I just feel like, for me, those images, what I'm trying to say, they're so familiar. They're so, they make me feel covered. They make me feel protect, you know. And maybe to somebody else, they can give an emotion of something else, you know, which of course we don't know. So that's why it's important to us always to talk, because you give me an opinion of something and it's different. And that is also from image. Image has this same process. It's like to have an opinion. And that's why you can see the Mona Lisa and see something, then I will not be able to see it, or in a third person as well. And this is infinity. And that's why I extremely says that life is just about emotion, and images have the same process. Even images have this translation that it must be done from who's watching it, and then try to express with the world. So the words and images are so in the same register, to my point of view, you know, and both are very abstract, very abstract.
Actually, with Paola, we were early on speaking about when you read a book and you like this book, and then this book is featured in a movie. Sometimes you get disappointed. Sometimes,
yeah, for example,
you feel, oh my God, it's reading my mind. It's exactly what I pictured. And this is the interpretation of what you're reading based on your life history, of your past, of your emotional level. I mean, a series of components that are making everyone unique. And yes, with Paola, we were speaking about this, how the imagination then is very personal, right?
Yeah. I was saying that, you know, together we were talking about the words, even, you know, especially when you read, you have, it's very difficult now. A lot of books has images, and also for kids, because I have 2 little kids, I realize that they're very interested in the picture when you are talking, when you are telling the story, because this, in a way, this picture is leading them to have an idea. But in fact, many times I ask not to watch the picture and to have their own imagination, because the imagination, free imagination, is something that is so precious, because it's our interpretation of things, and words has so many different. I make you an example. If you read about a landscape, and there are some writers that are amazing, everyone give a different picture after, because the words and the images have so many way of expression that makes unique, because every one of us is really unique. So there is no possibility to have 2 Annamaria, there is no possibility to have 2 Roula, 2 Antonio. Everyone is unique, and it is the way they're expressing themselves that is so, it is our power, is the power of our life, and every one of us can give a contribution. You know, the little grain of sand that make a difference, that we can make a difference, each one of us.
I think you're absolutely right, Paola. I think it depends on our experience, knowledge of the world, and the perception of what we read and what we see. So when I look, for example, at Leonardo Da Vinci's paintings, would be completely different to someone doesn't know who Leonardo Da Vinci is and what he's done. So the appreciation and the perception of that image is going to be different, and talking or writing about it is going to be different. So it's that expression of, when we see the world, what we're seeing is the expression of our identity, not what the world is. So I get when Antonio is talking about nothing is real, it's all a construction of our own brain and the perception of the world through our knowledge and through our experience.
Absolutely.
There was, sorry.
The link to this, Dolly, the words of silence.
The words of silence.
The power of silence.
Actually, the title was inspired after the discussion with you and Maria and with Paola, and during that very brief meeting when we were talking about silence and pauses. And this is how I chose my title, that it's all about words of silence, because there are words in silence. There are unspoken words and pauses. And when I talk about silence, I don't mean here just silence in the talking language or the writing language, but I'm talking about the silence in the architecture language and in art. Because when we talk about silence, this is when the inspiration between words and design happen. So if you allow me, on this occasion, I actually wrote something.
Very good.
So words or images. As words create spaces of imagination, they transform these spaces into poems, songs, objects, graphics, art, architecture, music, and everything poetic and human. How do words inform our imagination? Our places and spaces of creativity as designers. Which is more powerful, poems or drawings? And this discussion is actually a discussion between Gaston Bachelard and Leonardo Da Vinci. Leonardo Da Vinci says supremacy of the image. Bachelard says supremacy of the poem. To you, to me, to an artist, to a poet, do you think with words or with images? We definitely need silence to think for silence. The unspoken word, also inspiring. How do we remember? With words or with visual memory? How do we think and experience the memory? With words or with images? So I'm going to show you a text from Leonardo da Vinci and some drawings of Leonardo da Vinci in the Clos, Chateau Clos here in France, where Leonardo da Vinci spent the rest of his life in his garden. And each one is going to look at these images from a different perception. So someone that have followed Leonardo da Vinci's career, they're going to be shocked and disappointed that this is what happened to his art at the end of his years. To someone else who loves the poetry of France and the perception of the chateau going around in the French Loire Valley, they're going to appreciate it and love the play of light. And just pause and think of these images as you see them. Because I prepared, here's something I prepared earlier, which is a presentation. So Leonardo da Vinci says, painting is poetry, which is seen and not heard, and poetry, heard and not seen.
Ma quell'altra, accendi la stufa.
On the other hand, you've got Francis Yates, who talks about the memory. The soul never thinks without a mental picture. The thinking faculty thinks of its forms in mental pictures. This is a mental picture of Chateau Clos Lucé. So when I think of the version of the rocks, this is not how I usually see it. I see it in its entirety as a painting with lots of the actual original landscape. So it's been taken out of context and put in a landscape that it does not belong to. When someone that doesn't know Leonardo da Vinci sees this painting, they're going to think that this is a portrait from Leonardo da Vinci's work. So we're taking this out of context. And they're going to think of Chateau Clos Lucé more than the actual work of Leonardo da Vinci. So our perception already have twisted. But then Leonardo da Vinci never thought with words. He always thought with images, even when he was a child. This is how he expressed his identity, and that's how he escaped his real world, through the anatomy, looking at the object, at the actual human being body and drawing, never expressing with word, unless he's talking about the mechanism and the flight of birds. The sketches of birds, you could actually talk about and draw the birds as they're taking flight, but if you want to talk about the mechanism, it's either you make or you write. So design inspires writing, writing inspires design. Then again, poetry inspires is more important than images, right? This is what Gaston Bachelard says. We cover the universe with the drawings we have lived, which means our home, our house. These drawings do not have to be accurate. They only need to be personalized in the style of our interior space. And here interior space is mental space, not so much physical space. This is what Antonio was talking about, our perception of the world that twists everything around. Nothing is real and everything is real to us. So a word is about attempting to become a twig. How can one not dream while writing? It's the pen which dreams. The blank page gives the right to dream. So I'm going to finish with this. To Leonardo da Vinci, it is the supremacy of the image that is more powerful than a poem. With images, we can describe the intent, the ambience, the meaningfulness, while with words, we can describe our perception of our visual environment. Which is more inspiring? Here, we are exploring a sensory experience and the phenomenology of space and of architecture. And it's a movement. Phenomenology is a movement. It's the ambience and the way that spaces make us feel, close to them or not close to them. Silence is as powerful as words. The poses in the poem have a meaningfulness of announcement. What is going to come next? Just as poses in architecture or in art. Here is a painting by Leonardo da Vinci. Our level of perception. With our level of perception, we remember Leonardo da Vinci with images and with the experience that we lived these images, not in its original context. So nothing is real, everything is real. The only real thing is the silence in our brain that inspires us. End of my writing.
That was wow. Powerful, Dolly. Thank you so much for sharing this. Again, as I was telling you backstage, if you want to call it, we were talking about how, the whole idea of the power of silence, or maybe the sound of silence. It reminded me of another Italian, a more contemporary one, Andrea Bocelli, and his Teatro del Silenzio, because this is where he sings, and at the same time, it's a theater of silence. So is this where sound originates? Is this where emotions originate, images originate? And I think you kind of showed us that, yes, this is how silence is the absolute chaos from which everything else emerges.
It's the contemplation before the action. Mm-hmm. And we need silence in order for us to be inspired. If I see Leonardo da Vinci and I go straight into a party, I wouldn't be able to actually write, or I wouldn't be able to get inspired or make use of this inspiration. If I go and I start contemplating in that garden, I get a pen and paper, I start writing, I start drawing, I start sketching. There is silence, even if there is no silence around me, but as long as there is mental silence. Mm-hmm. And these are the most powerful words, because that's what creates design after.
What it comes to my mind when you were talking is related to sculpture again, and is related to Michelangelo. You remember the Pietà of Michelangelo, the very famous one is in St. Peter in Rome. But another one that nobody knows is, not all of everybody knows, is Pietà Rondanini. That is the one that makes the non finito way of sculpting. It comes to my mind this because the silence, I can also, is like a translation in the gesture of the silence, the lack of sign, not to sculpt everything, but to leave a pause, to give us imagine is missing. So if you think for Michelangelo, he had the time to finish Pietà Rondanini, or because he lived after 20 years after that, but he never did. He never did because he wanted probably to leave us the imagination through this pause, through this silence that he left in the work. I don't know if when we were talking, came this idea.
Absolutely, and it reminds me of Italo Calvino. It wasn't intentional silence with his last book of the 6 memos. He did not finish it off, and it just kind of been left hanging for us to use our imagination. If Italo Calvino would have finished this, what would have looked like? This is the power of the imagination, that you don't reveal too much. Let the imagination play, because silence is the absence of sound. So the only way to fill the absence is through imagination, creativity, action. It's up to us to fill that silence, right? That's what inspired design is all about, and vice versa. Absolutely, 100%. As you were talking, I'm inspired to think about Italo Calvino.
You inspired me a lot of things. I was thinking now about Thackeray. It was very nice to this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also your name reminds me of the famous director. So it inspires me to go and see
I hope to be here.
I think also, Dolly, what is interesting to notice that the silence is not that silent, because you were thinking during you were talking. So so sometimes what Leonardo was saying, it was like, then the sound is not acoustic, is the silence. It could be also with the sound, and but there is, what I'm trying to say, then there is a different silence, which is probably the time where we are able to think. And I think is something that you usually do when you have this kind of a conversation where we have now. This is the influenza. I'm hoping will cover the whole world, not the COVID-19, but the COVID of intelligence, which just only through this conversation we can develop thinking and develop new ideas, and actually to maybe disagree or agree on many things is really, this is my wish for the entire world. There is a need for each of us to talk. Like exactly you mentioned Leonardo Da Vinci. I named my son Leonardo, so I'm deeply in love with his life and his career. So Leonardo was constantly talking, asking, inquiring, and actually writing a lot. Not, he paint very little. I mean, his drawing and everything are like a really a small part of his career. The most what he did, it was to write. So I'm fascinated of what you noticed about his end of life, and again, I think the silence is not just the sound. And I thank you very much to brought this out. It's very interesting in your research.
Thank you. I actually noticed when I visited the palace, the Clos Palace, that Francis, the King Francis, what he said to him was that this is the garden. The only thing I ask of you is to be inspired and to be creative and to focus on your art. You have nothing else to do except inspire. And just when you visit the garden, you know that the silence of the garden and how can we say that, the bruit, the movement of the trees, the sound, the small whispers of the trees in that garden, although it wasn't that silent, there was life in it. This is what was inspiring Leonardo da Vinci to write and to create and to keep going with what he did. Visiting that garden and seeing the paintings, you realize what the poses, in mental poses, in Leonardo's paintings were.
I think it was the best gesture of all his career, finding the King of France, give him the opportunity to do what he did at the very last part of his life, because he was too busy in other stuff when he was around Milan and Florence and Rome. So I think it was, life was exceptional in everything. Also in this last meeting, it was amazing. Very, very interesting.
Dolly was mentioning today, Virginia Woolf, a room for yourself, because this silence make you, it's a difference, for women, for every woman, we know how difficult it is to have silence. The quality silence is very, 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 very rare. And you have to find a way how to, it's something that, especially when you are writing and you do something, it's really necessary. This kind of silence, the silence with the words, but the silence with the good words that you can create with your imagination. And is very precious for everyone, but for a woman is much more difficult to achieve it.
It is. And I think we have to find our own silence. I mean, I'm from Lebanese background too, like Roula. And to me, although Lebanon, as chaotic as it can be, the mountains of Lebanon for me is my silence, is my pause in this world. So if I want to go and put a pause on my life, this is where I do it. I don't care about the chaos around me in Lebanon, what's happening, but just looking towards the Pine Valleys, that is a silence to me. That's my quality silence to me. And it could be as chaotic as you can possibly imagine. But at the end of the day, I think every single one of us has to find their silence. As Antonio said, it does not have to be with words, because the world cannot just go silence completely. You have to find your own pause. Whether going to a museum is your pause, listening to music is your pause, watching a movie, that could be a pause. It's whatever inspires your soul. That's what it comes down to.
What inspires your soul and allows you to focus on it as well.
Yes.
So that's the stillness of focus. This is the positive, the pregnant silence.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It's the creative silence, that you are being silenced for a reason, because you want to stop, appreciate, capture the moment, and create after that. And I talk about creation because if you're an artist or a designer, your brain does not switch off. It is on 24/7 for the rest of your life. That's what happens when you become an artist or a designer. Everything is inspiring. So Leonardo da Vinci, when he started drawing, what he taught the world is to pause and look at the detail. Looking at a flower from our perception is different when you start drawing the flower. This is when you start appreciating the little veins, you start appreciating the light, you start appreciating the anatomy of the flower and appreciating the flower more. So
going back, linking to what has been mentioned before about Italo Calvino, there is another book that probably you all know is The Invisible Cities. Is a must for architects. So I remember when in my first years of university in architecture in Milan, they gave this as an assignment to read a book, choose one city, one description, which is a beautiful piece of literature, by the way, and do your project. So we were all kind of stuck because we didn't understand. And then we understood the beauty to link the description that is very imaginative and your own interpretation. And that is beautiful because has been done a link between literature and design and something that you build. So yes, there is a power unbelievable on.
yeah, and that's a perfect example where the city inspired all that writing, that beautiful writing, the city of Venice, you know. Yeah, this is a perfect example of that pause, of that silence.
I am actually in Venice, so I can tell you,
I cried when I got to your city from the beauty. Like this, I'm doing the Italian gesture.
You are.
We are in beautiful cities, and any one of us, you know, we cannot complain much because you are in Paris, you know, and
Nantes, close.
Close to Paris.
Nantes.
Paris. Nantes. Okay, it's beautiful as well. But you know, Venice has this thing. It's right. You can perceive the pose because it is a city that has this beautiful thing. No cars, and you know, and everything has this quietness. And also now is even better. Unfortunately, is for COVID, but COVID took also something good for every one of us. Probably also this kind of different conversation, and also give us the way of having a pause that is a kind of silence in a way. You know, I always say that there is nothing is bad. It depends how you look at it. So if you look at the glass that is empty or a little bit full, you know, it's we watched life in general. So also COVID can bring something good. We have to look a little bit carefully, but something is good also for that.
Let's hope for the intelligent influenza. That's what we need as a pandemic. That's what we all hope.
You know, another pandemic, another
pandemic of intelligence. That's will be the next one.
That could be another talk.
Correct. Because you know what I see around nowadays is only people try to stay speaking about imagination, the people, I think they lost a little bit this exercise, you know.
Right.
They all think about now and at the moment, which I don't want to disappoint anybody, but the moment is not a moment has no time. You know, people misunderstand that, you know, live the moment means live it now. It doesn't really fall in Italian Leonardo's ideas. The moment is not now. The moment is a moment, you know, has no time. So we may have to think with you know, in a different way, and that's what is for me is my difficult time. Of course, for all of us, it's not an easy time, and is, but I think it's where we need to use our intelligence right now. That's what we need to do, and to think about the future. So to have an imagination, to have a hope, because sometimes we didn't mention before, but I think sometimes imagination is also fate of the future, or of something else. Again, you know, it's something that is not now, but is something different, you know. And again, so I really wish that could help, you know, even this hard time, instead of complain all the time about this and that. You know, the French, they should have done this, Italians so bad in doing that, Germans here, Lebanese and whatever. Just trying to use our skills and use the imagination to do something that is interesting, you know, no more destroying or killing. It's so easy, you know. The imagination we have nowadays is just most, I mean, I'm speaking, of course, generally, and it's not related of none of us at the moment, but humans are usually thinking about the imagination of death, not imagination of life. Leonardo da Vinci, in one of his writing, he was noticed that between the two big rocks in the center of Florence, there was grass growing up, right? And he was saying then that's the proof that life is stronger than death, because, you know, in a certain of way, you know, life, how can born a grass in the middle of the city between the concrete and stones? And it's actually Leonardo da Vinci was mentioned that life is stronger than death. So the imagination, why we have to have the imagination of death and not having the one of life?
You're absolutely right. He even like saw beauty in death. If you think about it, everything that inspired Leonardo was from nature. Correct. Whether it was anatomy, whether it was you know, the even when he invented the helicopter, he invented everything from nature, from the flights of birds. He observed, took time to pause, to silence, for that silence to kind of seep in and see how he could be inspired from the world around him, from nature. And if we're talking about Italo Calvino, because now we talk about both of them, in Marco Valdo, for example, he basically based the entire book on nature, on seasons, the mushrooms, the pigeon. So I think it's very, very important what you're saying, because COVID-19, what it allowed us to do, it allowed us to pause and reflect and be silent, something we never had the time to do before. And with that silence, I think came a lot of creativity and imagination and humanity for many people. It allows us to contemplate and to pause and see what's important for us in life. We didn't do that before COVID-19. That is our silence. But many people are not taking a moment to kind of pause and say, what's the next step? How can we use nature that is now breathing? You know, we've been suffocating nature for a long time, and now it's breathing because of COVID-19. We're not getting inspired by nature at all now. Well, many of us aren't anyway. I think we need to go back and have a look, revisit nature like Leonardo da Vinci and Calvino did.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, this is a time where we can either reject the silence that is somehow imposed on life, or the pause, or we can embrace it and use it in order to synthesize and use our imagination in ways that we otherwise wouldn't have done. I can relate to this, for example, as a writer. I am enjoying this aspect of lockdown, staying in, having more time indoors, because it's not just indoors within the house, but it's also indoors within yourself. That allows you to appreciate and be inspired by nature or whatever that you did not have enough time to contemplate before during the rush and the busyness of life. So I totally agree with that.
Yep. Absolutely.
And what about the other way around? If it's art that is inspiring, art or design or architecture, you name it, inspiring words.
I think of Parc de la Villette, which was a collaboration between Derrida and Matrumi, and Trumi, sorry, Bernard Trumi, the architect. So it was a good collaboration, how words inspire architecture, architecture inspire words. The idea was that a collaboration where an essay came up by Derrida. Trumi saw that, he got inspired to actually design the Parc de la Villette according to the movement of deconstruction. And then he started working with Derrida and creating a dialogue between words and architecture. And the result was a park that wasn't conventional and was completely based on the movement of deconstruction. So it was completely based on literature, not the other way around. So it was a beautiful dialogue. And if you want to read more about this, is a book called Alcora, L-C-H-O-R-A, by Derrida and Trumi.
Dolly, if you think what you were saying before about Leonardo, the inspiration by architecture, I can say nature is a kind of architecture, you know, is the first we saw, and we were inspired. We were inspired to do something that is related to nature and is coming from nature. So in a way, of course, writers were inspired by architecture because we were inspired by nature as well. So the forms we find in nature are the one we try to convert in architecture, and they are the one we try to express by words. So I think Maria is, again, for Leonardo da Vinci, when we were saying, you know, how when he was drawing a flower, there is a symmetry, you know, organization of line that is almost perfect. And we are not as perfect as nature, still not. We didn't achieve that goal that probably one day we will, but you know, it's
the original design. We can't copy the original. A copy can never be the original. Absolutely.
This reminds me not only of Leonardo, but it also reminds me of Raffaello. Something written on his tomb that I forgot what exactly it was, but someone who was, does any of you know exactly what it is? But it's about how he tried to imitate nature so beautifully, and he did it so well. So I don't know if I could find the exact words here.
There was something, you know, I remember this, that was even most beautiful. There was something related to Raphael. That after he died, I don't know if it was this.
Yeah.
There is I don't remember now as well, but I was in Rome recently, and there was this that he did something more beautiful than nature. They said, you know, it was
like that.
The only artist that was who was, I don't remember if Verrocchio, probably he said something like that. I don't remember, but there is famous.
Yeah, maybe it was Vasari. Not sure.
Was
who that was.
This is where you need to be inspired by words. See, this is where you need an image to inspire words.
I'll try searching for that. Oh yes, living, great nature feared he might outweigh her works, and dying fears herself may die. So,
and who said that?
It was Alexander Pope.
The Pope?
No, Alexander Pope.
Alexander Pope. I know. I thought because he was working for a Pope at the time, probably.
Yeah. Anyway, I named my daughter Raffaella because of Raffaello.
Raffaello. But, you know, he was a huge artist, very, very, you know, fantastic artist. But he lived such a short time that, you know, he was so young when he died. And he did a lot. You can imagine every time, if you compare yourself to that people, you feel really bad. You know, it's impossible. They died like so young and they did huge things. It's incredible.
I mean, if we want to leave also a contemplation for architecture, because we're talking about art, but if you think about it, and we're turning it into Italian night, which is great, you know, all the art, architectura, all that came from Italy. So Carlo Scarpa, I think with his Castelvecchio, it inspired so many writings to analyze that beautiful staircase, you know, and this is a perfect way to say that this is when architecture and image inspires more design, because there's no way you could describe that staircase in words. Some designs, you just need to see the actual image for you to be inspired, and words would just not do it justice. So, you know, the poetics of the Verona, the landscape, the history of Castelvecchio, and then continuation between modern and ancient, you know, the marriage between the two, plus his architecture in there, that needs to be experienced and felt and seen, not described. But I could be wrong.
All right. I was just checking some of the comments and I see Hiba. I just read it.
Yes, Hiba. I believe Hiba had to leave. Like, yes.
I read it anyway because it's interesting.
Firio Zarifi is a London-based Jungian analyst, and you know, I'm sure she really enjoyed the talk today, and she would have loved to stay for the Q&A session to also ask you in person, but she had to leave because she had a patient. But yeah, you may, Annamaria, do you have the comment, Hiba's comment, if we might share it now?
I was just trying to reading this. I like what Antonio is saying, that the artist himself doesn't necessarily know what he's doing, led by an emotion. Jung would say that beyond the personal, there is the archetypal, outside of our personal control, as Antonio is expressing. And Antonio, I see that is somewhere. I also like what Paola says, that words are images. Roland Barthes says that language is a skin. Language is a skin. It touches us like emotion.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Paola, we don't hear you.
Continues to say Wagner amplifies music to saturation and draws it back to absolute silence. And she agrees with Dolly, and she says, I too draw silence from the mountain of Lebanon.
My pause.
And Christine Moore, but I think it's better if you Roula read.
Christine, let me see, Christine's comment. Christine, are you here, Christine? Christine was our guest last time.
Yes, I see her. Hi, Christine.
Christine is a poet and editor of Poet's Head, a poetry platform in Ireland. And oh, I need someone who reads French. Maybe Dolly, you could read this, or Christine, feel free to read it.
Christine, would you like to read your own writing? Would you like me to do it?
I'm not very good at French. I can understand it, but I've got terrible pronunciation.
Le poème, writes Valérie, est du langage à l'état naissant. So, writes Valérie, is language in the state.
In the state of being born.
Yeah, of being born. À l'état naissant, yes. So this is the end of the French. Back to you, Rola.
The role of activity in bringing something to form as a question. Would any of the guests like to answer Christine's comment?
I see Hind. What do you think of the concept of associating a definition or a name to an object or a form makes us wonder less about it, as if limiting our imagination surrounding it?
I mean, we do it with architecture all the time with the typology, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I think with objects, it's form follows function. So we have a prejudged idea of what an object can do the moment that we look at it. We don't need a description or a catalog to tell us this is lemon squeezer. This is unless you're talking about Philippe Stark's lemon squeezer, then everyone's reaction is what it is.
This is the good things, you know, you can do something completely imaginative using
Completely different.
yeah, completely different. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think we're talking about our imagination, which is constructed by our perception, knowledge, and experience in the world. So that's why we don't need to give names to objects, or we don't need to have a description for objects that we see. It's the form follows function. Our brain is already programmed to read them as a language.
But this is why it's so interesting to see also the kids' way of living life and things and drawing, for example, because many times there is not such a strong structure that avoid us to have free imagination, and also the object for them sometimes has no meaning because they don't have experience. And this is something that makes us very disappointed sometimes to say, you don't understand what it's for? No, because they don't have the experience. So if they don't have the experience in a way, especially for the, you know, if you name something, it's real that you give this object a role, you know, in life, but it's also real that art can reinvent something and use for a different thing. You remember the double C, famous double C for Duchamp, that he was used for a piece of art, for example. You know, you can revisit it in a way and give different meaning to object, using them for different things, for example. The point is, I think also that there are functional objects, and the words are not only naming object, but also naming emotions. And this is the thing that they are not able to do properly, is just we try to find so many words, but all of them are not enough to express our emotions. This is why when you read or you watch an images, you have your own way of translating the reading and the images that you see, because you know, you don't have an end, you know, there is not something that you can catalog in the emotion of be happy is this emotion. No, it's not one.
I think you're tapping into something really important, Paola, here with the methodology of design. You know, there's a reason why we draw and why we communicate with images. Absolutely. You know, there are things that we can't actually write to explain. Imagine if you're writing a poem to explain your design to a client. It just doesn't happen. No. We need to see images, and the client needs to see images to visualize what the future of this image is going to look like.
Even, Dolly, I'm sure you agree with me, that the sketching process, how important is that? And I would like my students to understand how important is that.
So the lecture is...
No, I'm joking. But no, it's very important, because that is a language, is a way to communicate, especially as you said, with your clients. Show what you mean.
Images. We can't say
perfect rendering.
Yeah, we can't say I'm designing at the moment. I'm designing a tower. With this tower, you've got a window, and the window is that high. What you're imagining, what I'm imagining, are two different things, and it's the power of word and imagination, personal experience, perception. We need to draw. That's why they say, draw me a picture.
Yeah, yes, you know, this is why every time, you know, it's true also myself, if I do something, I do a presentation, I present something else, please do a rendering, give me the idea, because we can have so many different ideas from a word, from a description that, you know, you have, and then you give, you translate your ideas in a drawing or in a rendering, And this is why I say, I don't like it. I want more like this or like this. You know,
Yes, exactly. A picture is worth 1,000 words. That's what they usually say, especially in design. There's a reason why we've got this methodology of designing and drawing. And we have a language, our own language, especially with architecture and interior design, to actually draw the orthographic drawings. It's a language to communicate with the rest of the world, professional world, and with the community, with the clients.
So if you think just drawing a plan is a language, because it's not, I mean, obviously you're drawing something that for standards is understood, but you're drawing to make people understand what you're designing, right? Absolutely. And use a language.
It's also structuring. Could we see it as a structuring of experience, you know, or as, if I return back to Christine Murray's comment, if you give form, you find form in sculpture, you find form in poetry. So if they're all rooted in the experience, the emotional experience, or the perception and the translation of life, and then we sort of regurgitate this translation and we take it back into the world, giving it form. Is this why or how we create design, how poetry frees language or gives the energy in language a sort of tactile or concrete, in a way, form, structure? So are we restructuring life through words and imagination and the artifacts that we create, whether it is design, sculpture, poetry? Is it?
Can I think that when you were talking, I was thinking this famous, I don't know if it's a psychoanalyst, that Lacan, that was saying that our thoughts, our way of thinking is structures as a language. You know, and this make a lot of studies about that, the language, which language, you know, that there is a difference between how we think in Italian, how we think in French, how we think in English, how we think, because really there is a friend of mine, she is, I think, bilingual perfectly. She said every time to me, if I need to do a presentation, I never think in Russian, I think in English. When I want to do another thing, I want to write a beautiful letter to my mom, I think in Russian. So there is also these things that probably it is not exactly what you were asking, but when we were talking about the structure and how we communicate the structure, I introduce also this topic, that is, if the way we are thinking is changing the structure of our communication. Because we need to think, if you think in English, life is easier. I can be very honest. If you think in Italian, it's a mess.
I think in French.
Cannot to the end of the talk and say, okay, let's talk. You know, it's real. It's more, you know, focused. So sorry if I add this, because what you said is inspired me this.
It is, totally, yeah.
I think you've tapped into something, Paola, exactly. And same thing with you, Roula, when you were talking about structure. Yes, it is a structure because you need to structure the discipline. And the only way you can structure a discipline is through a language. Or any society, any community. But also, this is why they say design is a universal language, because of the images that we show. Drawing is a universal language. You don't need to translate it. Like in my brain, it's very messy. Lebanese, French, English. And English and French don't get along very much. So,
exactly like Italian, you know.
So there's a lot of conflict there. But yeah, absolutely. I think you've tapped into it, because if we're talking about language, we are talking about structure. Structure is the grammar, it's the adjectives, it's you know, the way that we write from right to left or left to right. This is all structure, and the actual designer language is structural, because you need order. You need order in order for you to actually write a legible language that everyone can understand. And our order is through the images, the poses that we create from these images as well, you know, the silence inspiration and methodology that we create, up until the time where we hand in the drawings to the client to approve, and then realize the project after that.
But how do you think that our way of thinking, so our mental structure, can influence also the drawing? Because in a way, what you are saying is that you have like a new language completely, that is the one of the drawing, but our mind is set as, with our own language. So we have to translate our language in images. How this different way of thinking can influence the way we are drawing?
This is a very good question, because a designer's thinking is very messy. It's never this. It's always this. It's very messy inside our head. We can never go linear. And this is a really good question to ask. Like, if we actually, maybe this is why we need a structure, as an order that is as structural for the technical aspect. For example, for architecture, very technical aspect, we need order and serious repetitiveness, rhythm, to create the drawings. But the actual creation process, it's an ongoing dialogue between inspiration, imagination, reality. What is real, what is not. When you create a concept, it does not work. You have to go back to the drawing table. It's a very, very messy inside the designers and the architects' heads.
Yeah, like that.
The whole creative aspect, the same goes with writing. First of all, it's just a bunch of ideas, and then you need to organize these ideas. Then you need to chop some off, and then so this is the alchemy of art. So whatever it is, it starts with chaos, and then this whole big mess turns into a very simple, refined product in the end.
Well explained, beautifully said.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much. Really, this is a wonderful, wonderful discussion. So much fun and very thought inspiring. And let me check. Do we still have any other questions unanswered?
A last question that we didn't.
Mariam, was Mariam's question answered?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So Mariam asks, do you believe that recreating art makes it more powerful? I believe it's a question for all three of you. So
I'm going to ask Antonio, because he is the maker of art, sculpture. So I think I can answer after Antonio, but you go for it.
Yes. But you also making art, all of you guys, because art is a really lateral concept. Everyone we're doing in writing and designing or drawing, paintings, everything, visual art. So I thank you for your kindness, and I just want to say something. First of all, thank you to you guys, and then we'll try to answer. But it's really important to.
Oh, we lost Antonio.
Exactly at the wrong moment. To do, yeah. This is another way of communication, another language now, technological language. Anyway. We have Miriam back, Paola back, but we don't hear you. You need to mute.
There you are. Yeah,
I'm here.
And I think we lost, unfortunately.
I tried to see if there is a part, a special area there.
Okay, Antonio is coming. I see him joining.
Okay.
30 seconds.
This is the technology, and we are lucky because we can talk. We don't have to complain about technology.
Hi, sorry, I'm here. I lost the video. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we see you and hear you.
Oh, good.
Make it more powerful.
Definitely. I was trying to. I was talking. Actually, I didn't notice that I was not online.
So maybe you're
yeah, absolutely. Of course. I mean, that's to me is the only power. I mean, there is no other powers, you know, because it's the way make all of us better, you know. And what I was saying before is that's, you know, art is very, to me, is very a very lateral conception. I mean, there is not any definition, and there is not any borders that including artist or non-artist, because in our way, and that is not a common sense saying. Actually, I deeply believe it, because is in a research, then is a duty, you know, to be an artist is the aim of our life. There is not a particular technique that is better than the other. And so art to me is writing, reading, speaking, and sculpting, or anything is possible. I think is a status of mind. So artist, it means from the word of artificial, in a good meaning of artificial, something that is artifact. So it's something that you need in a translation. And I think life need to have this progress and this process. So yeah, you know, we're talking about art, but we may talking about life. And then of course, I'm using my hands, somebody else using something else. And but I think is the only power. Art in the meaning of translation of the images, translation of the listening, understanding and not understanding of the words. And that is a progress that I really hope we will carry on doing it, all of us, and involving, of course, the youngest, and to don't ever hesitate to do the art way, you know, to thinking, to translate, to understanding, to debate, to confront ourselves all the time, you know, and that's the definition of art. Then which I believe it, and I think is the only power.
Okay. I think we can. We have a last one, really short, because when it's getting too long. About for Antonio again, but all of you feel free. It's talking about Antonio.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
About which artwork, which piece of art that you did of your work is closest to your heart?
This one, I'll show you to you right now. is a wax work. Then I was actually doing it by the time we were talking. And this is the Dino Wish is now is in a small version in wax, and is a work of this fantastic animal, which again is coming from imagination, from dreams. These are the dreams of children. You know, now it's not finished yet. It will have wings. You may see it. It was show one of these pieces was shown at the DFC, and it's this gold, fantastic animal. I'm very interested on this, as I said in the beginning, of the process of this imagination and images that children are always putting together. As nothing have, you know, sculpture as a problem theoretically, because they have the gravity, you know. So the issue to make things flying is very difficult in of course in sculpture. And children, they don't really mind about these things, you know. They're creating object that, you know, they have a small wings like that, and they can fly, even they weight 2 tons. and you know, and I'm so fascinated about that. And actually what I'm trying to do is to follow this deep drive. Then I think I have it at the moment, to don't create any barrier, you know, to like with the drawing, you know. And drawing is more easy to simple, not easy to making, you know, like an object fly or suspended in the world. Like in architecture, you follow pretty much we follow your issue. You know, when you're building a building or a structure, you have to think about the gravity, about the geometry, and of course all the engineering. Sculpture is very similar, but I think we should go at the limits, you know. So, and again, for us, which we don't have as sculptors, we don't need to live inside of our sculptures. So we can go a little bit further than architecture, which of course nobody wants a building falling off just to do in a design, then it's too difficult. But yeah, I lost myself because I'm a little bit stupid, like every artist are. You know, we lose our focus most of the time. But that's where I'm most attracted of it, is to go in this field where even a sculpture, they can fly, or they can and they can be something completely unreal, you know, and without following any barrier, I would call it. You know, that's my piece at the moment. Maybe tomorrow will be another one, but that's actually, I'm deeply in love with this work that I'm doing it now.
So thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna.
Everyone.
Thank you to all.
Thank you, Roula. Thank you. Has been
Thank
amazing.
you.
I hope everybody enjoyed it. I guess.
Thank you.
Anna, let's do this every day for 3 times a day.
Okay.
Well,
That is a breath of intelligence. I really need it.
Yes,
I think, let's do it. You know, morning, lunch, and evening every day.
no, maybe we come up with something else soon, Roula. Roula and I will think about something else. But thank you so much. It's been really, as you said, fresh air, something that so treasured at the moment. And absolutely, your contribution has been special.
Thank
That.
you.
Thank you, Anna.
Lovely. Thank you.
Without you, nothing can happen. Remember.
Be strong, be intelligent.
Thank you very much.
Bye, though. Bye-bye.
Bravo.
Oh, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good
Thank
evening.
you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.